Today, I'm turning 28, and it feels like I'm starting over in life. It's equally liberating as it is terrifying. So, I want to inspire y'all to embrace the pivot, the reset, and the rebirth through my raw and real story of where I've been, where I'm going, but most importantly, who I'm constantly rediscovering myself to be. So if you feel like you are no longer the person you once knew, the world around you just seems different, and that there's no going back, this video is for you. We're gonna start with my story, roll into the lessons learned, then talk about how starting over can be the most liberating doorway you'll ever walk through. So this story begins, I guess as a teenager, constructing the dreams of the life I thought I wanted to live. I was into surfing, making surfboards. That was my first sort of business that I ran, and I was so creative and obscure and hard to relate to, yet always yearning to be seen and related to, right? But I had this identity that had to be sort of, ultra cool, ultra spiritual, all of these things that were authentic and beautiful. And during that time of kind of conceiving that life, I bookmarked 27, the age, for God knows why. I just put a bookmark in it. I knew that 27 was going to be a really pivotal year. It was going to be the year that everything was going to expand and happen. Now we'll get to that in a second. Now I went to architecture school, learned about architecture, furniture design, really got inspired about how humans interact with space and how, the way we relate to space is just an emanation of how we relate to ourselves. I got really into all of these juicy kind of crossovers. And I went on to pretty much construct the life that my 15 and 16-year-old self dreamed of, I was running a quote cool business, working my own hours, which was, there's so many illusions inside of there, and then so many shadows and so many struggles, right? But on the outside, I sort of constructed this life, and I had my first little sort of ego death, when I first started my business, gave it a good 6 months, but realized that what was missing was just the deep core connection to the people I love at the time, a lover and a community. Although I felt like I was doing work that inspired me, there was voids, right? So this was my first little mini death inside of the overarching death rebirth that I'm explaining. And so I moved back to the place that I really felt called to, and with my partner at the time, we were fucking dreamers. We were like manifesting experts. We manifested our little dream home. We built it from the ground up together. We grew a garden. We were entrepreneurs. We were learning about how to show up in the world and play bigger and dream big. And then there came a point where we realized, like, hey, this is our dream life, Like, we're living it, we're doing it. And then what happens when we get into, what happened for me at least, is in creating the sort of life that I thought I always wanted, it's like, great. Here we are. Let's just sort of preserve and protect what we have. And it's beautiful, right? Until curiosity wants to come up. You crave more. You want to expand maybe faster than you're expanding, And so I created this whole life, co-created this whole life with someone that I love. And while it was beautiful, it was like we were trying not to lose it. We weren't playing to win. And granted, safety is so beautiful, right? Safety and comfort in home, in a career, in relationship is extraordinary. But it became this sort of life that felt like it was like we had a fixed set of resources and love and all of these things, and like, let's just preserve this versus trying to really blow the roof off of what's possible. It was like settling, right? Trading expansion for safety and comfort. And while that isn't wrong at all, when the soul craves more. And so the way that life works, as much as I don't want to admit it, is the thing that I was most afraid of, losing the little dream life that I created, was the very thing that I needed to lose so that I could expand and rediscover who I am. And so life kind of gave me the cosmic 2x4 across the face, although it felt more like the 4x6, where we decided to close a relationship. And inside of that, literally a week later, I got kicked out of my home long story, but and I was also doing business there. And so I had my shop space, my business that I ran, also displaced, So it was like the triple whammy of the love that I had in that form, the home that I had, the safety in that form, and the business, the kind of sense of purpose, all thrown up into the air. And so that all happened this year when I was 27. So it's like I knew when I was a kid that 27 was going to be powerful, but it was more expansion through contraction, right? And it really was the perfect recipe for me to really do the deep work in the privacy of my own heart to really get into alignment with who I am, who I'm evolving to become, who I'm just curious to be, right? And all the parts that I'm curious about. So life taught me this lesson that sometimes loss isn't truly loss, right? We have to grieve the forms of the things that we love that we're letting go of, or that sometimes life is, quote, taking away. But I like to take responsibility for it all, right? So at 27, it was like I was lost, but yet I felt this deep fire brew at the same time. So the very world that I was living in, who I thought myself to be, the world around me, what I do for work, all of a sudden sank, like settled, like snow in a snow globe type of thing. And I just had to sit with the reality of everything that, I've never allowed myself to feel, but the death of the future that I thought was guaranteed, right? The death of the life that I thought I was gonna live. And while this has been a really challenging, painful process over the last 7 months or so, it's also been the greatest opportunity, calling, and challenge to become all that I can be, right? And here's some of what I've learned. So that's some context, right? What I've learned is that the quickest way to what you want is straight through your fears. But sometimes it's like our fears are us standing at the top of a diving board or at the edge of a cliff, and we know we need to jump. And we have the choice to jump. But sometimes life just pushes us, like that friend who comes up behind you and pushes you off the high dive. And we're sort of forced into the deep end type of thing. For me, as much as it felt like I could have been a victim to all those things, I felt so deeply supported beneath it all. As much as it felt like a falling that never ends, it felt like there was hands there. So when I needed that feeling, there was some sort of feeling inside of me that I could rest in that said, I'm going through this for such a specific reason. I've been designed to go through this so that I can become the person I yearn to become on the other end. Because life doesn't just take away what you have, to not create the space for you to expand your capacity to keep your heart open, to do the hard work, to reorient to yourself and to life without what coming next being so much better than you can imagine. Now, that process, there's no timeline, right? It's not a week, it's not a month, it's not a year, who knows how long this evolution takes, But I can say, as someone that feels like I kind of found that bottom and I've sort of slowly rounded it and kind of on the up and up a little bit, and it might go back down like that, I don't know. And that's the very nature, I don't know. But what I've learned is that everything is conspiring to help me become who I crave to become, and in a way, who what life is calling me to become. You can even take the spiritual route and say who the divine is beckoning you to be, right? So in losing, quote, these parts of my life, I was given the opportunity to find myself, to rediscover myself, to meet myself without the history of who I've been, to create a clear line, but while honoring the life that I thought I loved and knew that was going to be forever, that I created as a 15-year-old dreaming that, the life that my inner child wanted even, right? I can love and honor and respect that process and everything, and then I can lovingly kind of close that, tie a bow on it, and integrate all of those lessons learned and all of the wisdom. That I'm constantly evolving and changing. As much as me as a man, my masculine consciousness is very steadfast, I'm always expanding. The nature of life is change, and it doesn't have to look radically different on the outside, how you embrace that change, but how you are showing up and how you're meeting yourself. There's a great quote by Heraclitus that says, "No man steps foot in the same river, for he's not the same man and he's not the same river." In the same way that in the time I've been talking to you in this camera, cells in my body have died and been reborn, And in the same way that water from the ocean or water from the mountain flows down through the rivers into the ocean, then evaporates, becomes a cloud, and eventually makes its way up, but it's gone through a process of change. It's not the same once it goes back through. It's done one lap, right? It's made anew. It's like a spiral. It's ever deepening. So it can be really scary to accept the challenge that life is putting on your plate. Whether that's heartbreak, displacement, the loss of a career or a path, or just something that shakes up your reality enough to see like, whoa, is this my most authentic way of showing up in the world? Is this me? Here's why I believe that's the most liberating question to ask. Life is trying to help us to become who we were designed to become, helping us to become more free. There's a great quote by Peter Crone. He says, "Life will present you people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free." Now, add on to that, where life reveals where you're not free, you're given the opportunity to step towards that freedom, to move towards it, to do the awkward kind of muddy work that it takes to become that freedom, right? And how every area of your life is expanded. Sometimes it does take that sort of dark cocoon, that dark night of the soul, that just challenge, that rock bottom, or whatever it is, in whatever grandiose or nuanced form. It does take that to create the necessary cocoon for you to finally just really play big, to step up to be seen, to face those fears, to integrate those stuck emotions, to do the healing work, whatever it is, right? So it can be the most liberating doorway, because you wouldn't be called to go through it if what was on the other side of it wasn't better than you could imagine. And I can say, as I'm kind of rounding that little spot, that the world around me is so much more curious. There's such an abundant world and life and self that I get to discover. And that comes at the sort of cost of needing to feel the deep grief, the deep anger, all of the things that move through when we resist that change, right? But starting over can be the most liberating decision you ever make, or the decision that life makes for you. Because you get to become a stand for what you believe in, for the person you can be. You can hold yourself to that integrity. You can get keen on your core values of what you want to live for and how you can open your heart as that to the world. Now, you bet your sweet cheeks that the depth and level of connection that you experience is going to be that much more amplified. The way you give your gifts and show up in your business or in your career is going to be that much more fruitful and meaningful. All of those things get the chance to be updated and refined, right? The more refined version of you are operating as, the more beautiful, the more expansive the world becomes around you. And of course, you're gonna have to deal with hardship. It's not like once you start over, you do the hard work that, okay, it's a one and done thing. No, like we're constantly facing our own resistances, our own fears. But the more we can learn that it's safe to embrace them, because we know what it's like to go through them and make it out the other side, and to become that much better, to become that much more whole and integrated. Like that's a really magnetic process, right? It's hard. It's so hard. But in a way, it's like we're getting the opportunity to completely redefine ourselves, to completely rebirth ourselves with everything that we've learned, you know? The world might not see how you've changed, but in some way they will feel it, you know? And people will resist you, sure. But the energy that you then operate from that new refined place permeates into everything that you do, which is going to lead to more of the life you crave. The deeper connection to your purpose, deeper relationships, more fulfilling work and money and all of those juicy things. Now, it's not like an overnight thing, right? This work is long and awkward and slow, and it really doesn't end, right? For me, I feel like this has been, 7 months is not a long time at all. And I'm excited to see how this wave kind of undulates. But the way that I'm feeling now and how I can convey this to you, gosh, just makes me feel so excited to be alive, right? So if you find yourself really navigating significant life changes, you feel like you just need a huge change, like life is calling you to move somewhere else, or life is saying it's time to play bigger and it's time to lovingly close the friendships, the relationships, the connections to work and things that are not expanding pure possibility. It's safe to listen to those. It's safe to use your discernment, right? And to really prepare yourself and know what you have the capacity for, but the pivot is safe. The rebirth is safe. And it's hard and it's tough, but I can guarantee you that if you accept that challenge and you commit to doing the work that it takes, to feeling it all and embracing those fears, who you become on the other end that's gonna be such an invigorating electrical place, right? So, not that this needs to be a permission slip for you to start over, but for me, today, Aquarius baby, it really feels like I'm starting over. And as I start over, I wanna hold my heart a little bit more high. I wanna open it even when I wanna close it. When the world resists my gifts, I just wanna open and expand as more love and freedom. That's just the life that I believe in. And I see the life that I believe in, the beautiful world unfolding in front of me. So let this inspire you and expand you. And I'm excited to hear what becomes of your story, and whether or not I ever get a glimpse of that or not, I support you. Like, it's safe to die that type of identity death. It's safe to let go, and it's safe to redesign what you believe is possible for you, for life, for work. So yeah, and if you want more intimate wisdom and juice and help on that process, my newsletter is a great place to get that. So thank y'all for being here. Appreciate y'all. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.